Good morning, everybody. What a wonderful day it is. It is our 6th online professional webinars. We are really excited to be here and to have you as our audience. Thank you for coming and for gracing us this wonderful morning. I just want to see by a show of hands who has attended all 6 webinars. And please, people from the internal team, please put your hands down. I'm asking about our guests. If you have attended all 6 webinars, please put your hand up. You can use an emoji. So, or what is it called? Is it an emoticon or an emoji? I'm not sure. Nobody. Wait, maybe I'm not, maybe I should be in this. Is someone raising their hand? No one has attended all 6. I was about to give away a ticket to the conference, but it seems I will have to keep my tickets. Oh, okay. Well. So we see. But it's really exciting to be here. This is our 6th online webinar. We do these webinars in the lead up to our main conference in October. It happens every October. World Energy Day celebrated on the 22nd of October. Please put that mind on your calendar, the date. Save the date, always remember it. The day we celebrate energy, World Energy Day is on the 22nd of October. And so we have the conference on the days leading up to the day. So our conference this time will be 20th and 21st of October, and it will be happening all the way in Mombasa. So I know we have Ugandans in the house, and you really want, I know Uganda, do you have beaches, white beaches in Uganda? Elvis, where are you, Elvis? I know
yes,
Uganda is
I'm here.
so... Hey, tell me.
Good morning.
Do you have beaches?
Quite many of them.
Oh, you do?
Very many of them.
Next to an ocean?
No, not next to an ocean, but quite a number of lakes around here.
I see. Okay, so this is your chance to come down to a beach next to the ocean. We really invite all of you to sign up for the conference happening in October. But we are really excited to have all of you. A few ground rules, because we are together as a group and we need to have some rules to just govern us. Please turn off your microphone unless you're speaking. And then you can turn on your video if you have the bandwidth, because we want to see faces. We don't want to see black screens. We want to hope that we are talking to people. And then you can ask your questions, any questions, comments on the chat. And you can rename yourself to indicate your organization, because this is also part of networking, that we are part of this webinar, is that we also get to network. So please put your organization in as part of your name. So you could say, like me, put moderator, but you could put your organization there. So welcome. Let's see, where are people coming from? Please put it on the chat. Where are you joining us from? I'm personally in Nairobi and it is cold. Let's see who else is here. We have James from Kampala. I can see Elvis saying he attended some webinar spiritually. Wow. Okay, Carol, Thika Road Gang, that's Nairobi. Alex from Nairobi, Ruth, Machakos County. We have the Embakasi Squad. Isaiah from Nairobi. Byron from Kericho, Karibu Sana. Jimmy from Kampala. Tadeo from Kampala, a lot of Kampalas. Nairobi, Syokimau, Nairobi. Let's see. We're waiting to see where we're from. We haven't put it on the chat. We have Ibrahim from Mombasa. Wow. We'll be coming to you soon, Ibrahim. Kipsang from Nairobi, Cynthia from Kampala. We have Christine from Nairobi. Welcome, welcome everybody. Jones from Nyamira, wow. Michelle from Nairobi. Tony from Nairobi. Karibuni sana. It is really amazing to see all of you here. We are at 45 and I know more people will be joining us this morning. So our theme for this year's World Energy Day is empowering energy independence in Africa. And that the sub-theme is enabling rural and urban renewable energy awareness, access, and affordability. And we're having this conversation because it is really important for us to look at renewable energy. There's a lot of talk about climate change at the moment around the world. And one of the ways to tackle climate change is through having renewable energy sources. In Kenya, we're really at the forefront of using renewable energy sources. And so we just want to see how we can have more of these conversations. And the conversation today is about, the productive use of renewable energy, because when we think about electric mobility, we're thinking about how can we use the renewable energy we generate in the most, in the best way to serve us. And so today's theme is on clean transport in Africa, scaling e-mobility solutions and strategies. And we have wonderful speakers with us today who are going to be talking to us about what they are doing in their organizations to be able to bring e-mobility into Africa and to be able to scale e-mobility in Kenya and in Africa. So it's really, really exciting. But before we go to our speakers, I'd just like to ask a question. Who owns an electric vehicle, electric bike, electric motorcycle? If you do, please raise your hand. Oh, Alex and Isaiah. Okay, you guys are our speakers, so we'll get to hear about you. But let's see, anyone else in the audience who owns an electric vehicle or motorbike or bike? Oh, okay. Who has been carried by one? Nobody? Okay, I can see Ruth, Dennis, Tony David has been carried by one. Elaine, amazing. Okay, at least you've tasted how it feels to, to be carried by an electric vehicle. If you have, I think one of the things that surprised me is how quiet electric vehicles are. It's just so nice and silent. I think we are so used to the noise. It is strange for us. So thank you so much. So today we're looking at, of course, electric mobility and how we can get to scale this great innovation and technology in Kenya and in the rest of Africa. And so to have this conversation with us, we have two wonderful speakers. First is Alex Mwanzo. He's the general manager of Kenya's first electric vehicle dealer, and that's Equita Mobility. And they have a background in sustainable electric mobility in both design and operation and second life battery power application. So Alex, I'll invite you to just say hi to the people and to give us a brief about what you're doing.
Hi, Lynette. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I hope I'm audible enough.
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. I'm Alex Mwanzo. I'm the general manager for Equator Mobility. And what Equator Mobility does is we concentrate on fleet vehicles. The reason is we did think, or rather, fleet vehicles have the biggest impact in terms of our everyday lives. An example is everything around us at one point of its life, if it's your pen, if your food has at one point in its life gotten to us through a fleet vehicle, either as a lorry, small cars, tuk-tuks, bikes, and things like this. So we thought the environmental impact in the fleet vehicles would be more. And then again, if you look at the fleet vehicles, the utilization is slightly higher as compared to your normal cars. So this is your daily car that say you pick from your home to your school or to your workplace or somewhere else, and then it will park the whole day. So in terms of utilization, fleet vehicles make more sense as opposed to your daily vehicles. However, when it comes into savings, it makes more sense, and you'll actually realize the savings in fleet vehicles as opposed to having your normal EV. However, the savings are still the same. If it's fleet, it's just that in fleet you're using it more. And if it's a personal vehicle, you still enjoy some savings, just not as much. And then again, the basics still happen. Electric vehicles are more quiet. If you look at the past 2 years, fuel prices, especially in Kenya, has gone up 100%. It was 88, right now it's, I think, 160. So imagine if you could save this much. I have an electric vehicle, and which I use to work every day. If I use a diesel, I'd use about 5,000 a week. If I'm using an EV, it's mostly free because I'm charging at work. However, if I charge at home, I'd be using 800 shillings. So we're talking about 60 to 70% savings. And then again, almost zero maintenance, really quiet, really comfortable, and the speed is really interesting. So yeah, that's mostly from me.
All right, thank you so much, Alex, for that wonderful introduction and a brief on what Equator Mobility is doing. And I think the impact on fleet vehicles is really something that we overlook, but has a big impact. All right, so on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Isaiah Omondi. Isaiah Omondi is the head of operations at Bility Electric. It's an organization that's creating sustainable mobility vehicles that are designed to be smart, efficient, and economical. Isaiah, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about Bility.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Lynette, for this opportunity. As Bility Electric, we are a kind of a global organization. I think I do have a small slide. I don't know if we could share that. How do we get to the sharing bit? So that then I'll be able to, sorry. Where do we get the sharing button? Okay, there it is. Okay. So as the head operation of Bility Electric is Bility, we have Bility Incorporated. So Bility Electric Kenya is a subsidiary of Bility Incorporated, which is currently in California, United States. And as a company, our mission is to electrify, especially in the last mile, just as Alex has already mentioned. We are also focused on fleet currently. And the vehicles we have are basically rickshaws, three-wheelers, or what we know as tuk-tuks that we currently operate. Most of them here in Kenya. So currently that is what we are having in the market that we have introduced as a product. So far we have 1,700 vehicles all over the world. 1,700, that means and more, that are currently in most of the countries, around 15 globally. These are some of the companies we're currently working with. As a company, we also manufacture the vehicles. The vehicles are manufactured in India, at a place called Hyderabad, and we are anticipating to grow that manufacturing plant in the year 2022. We'll be having more vehicles that will be coming in. And so these are some of the clients we work with, Amazon and Amazon, Flipkart, Big Basket. Currently, we also have SocoWatch here in Kenya and also in Uganda and also Jumia. These are the other clients that we have. So basically our global presence is in almost all the continents. In America, we are based there. We are also in Europe. Currently in Africa, 2 countries, that is Uganda and Kenya. We are currently also in Uganda, in Dubai, that is the Emirates. We are also in India, basically where the company originated. The main players or the main team, we have our CEO, who is the co-founder, it's called Raja Gayam. We have Raul, we have Rajashi. These basically are all the team players. We have Hasha, we have Amar, and I sit in basically for Africa and especially Kenya as we start off the operation. The company in Kenya is now 1 year old. I think it was last year when I was starting off this month of September, registering the company and making sure that we have the company operation here in Kenya. So our main target with the rickshaws or the tuk-tuks, the product that we have is these are the 2 major products we have. We have the ones for passenger and we also have one for the cargo. Currently, we are operating the ones for cargo. And so that is basically what we are currently as a company engaged in here in Kenya and also partly in Africa as we introduce this product.
Thank you so much, Isaiah. I think it's really great to see all the work that you're doing with Beliti, and I think we'll get a little more into it as we go into the questions. So you can stop sharing your slides as we move on to the next session, which is our Q&A. So we'll be engaging our speakers, and as we do that, I'll ask that if you have any questions or if you have any comments, that you put those on the chat, and then we'll be able to table these to our speakers. So thank you so much, Alex and Isaiah, for that wonderful introduction. So my first question is to you, Alex. I think a lot of people are saying, this e-mobility thing, it's really foreign. It doesn't suit us. It doesn't suit our infrastructure. Why are we even talking about it? So is e-mobility does it work for Africa? What's your opinion on that?
Yes, I think the statement that it was created for the West is false. The reason is we have almost the same needs, and in a world where everything now is spread, same internet, same capabilities, I think we need to detach the conversation of something is made for a specific geolocation if we need to compete on an even playing ground. Africa, and true to your words, Africa, we've been on the tail end of manufacturing, and then that's even evident in our economies because we are more consumers than producers. However, if you look at it keenly, we actually need the electric vehicles because of the savings and the environmental impact that comes with. Imagine if a normal pen, which would be sold otherwise for like 50 shillings, if you'd get it for 40 shillings because the transport costs have gone down, say 60%. That means more money in your pocket, and more money for other things, more money for growth, more money for investment. If we spread it across, say, 1 million pens and things like that, it means more money in our hands. If we stop using the second-hand vehicles from Japan, the second-hand vehicles from UK, and just try to go into, say, new vehicles and into EVs, in as much as we're not producers at this moment and go into EVs, I think the savings that come with will impact us greatly. And I think Bility will touch into this, my friend Isaiah. For a normal boda, this guy takes home 1,000 shillings, Kenyan shillings, that's roughly $10. But if he's using an electric bike, he's taking home 50% more, say 1,500 shillings. This is 500 shillings more that can go into maybe school fees, can go into probably buying another boda and things like that. So it's a high time we have this conversation. And electric vehicles are made also for Africa. They work here. I think over 90% of the grid of Kenya is renewable, coming from Naivasha, the GDC and things like that. And we have infrastructure locally. In essence, if you can charge your laptop, you can charge your vehicle, you can charge your boda. And many companies such as Ampersand, Opibus, Bility are setting up swap stations such that to mitigate this gap of saying there is no infrastructure locally. Of course, there's the issue of range. There's only so far you can build an electric vehicle. However, this can be mitigated by the infrastructure, which is currently being built locally. So I say, yes, Africa, we are ready and we have the infrastructure for that. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Alex, for that. It feels like almost a debate. We're about to ask the opposers. But no, we'll just go with the proposers this time. I think you make really valid points here that yes, our needs are the same as the West in terms of mobility and in terms of our needs for mobility are the same. And so if we are talking about pollution, we're talking about the rising costs of fuel, they're all the same here as well. And so we need to find solutions that also work for us, and e-mobility is one of the solutions. Yeah. So I think the other thing that has been floated a lot is the lack of infrastructure. And for us, as our countries are huge, they're expansive. If you're looking to move from here to say Kisumu, it's a long distance, but we are not yet there in terms of charging stations and batteries. Maybe Nairobi is there and we are getting there, but the rest of the country is a bit far. What do you think will change in the coming years in terms of infrastructure?
The truth is, if you look at even how you travel, almost 95% of your travel is pretty definite. It's called an A to B. It's either home to school, home to work. For you to go up country or for you to travel outside your normal operating areas, it's usually 5% or less of the times. Unfortunately, we cannot build infrastructure for the 5%, but the 95% makes sense for you to go to work every morning and use 20 shillings as opposed to 100 shillings. However, it will come a time, especially in the border space, or it will come a time where we'll have swap station, we'll have really, really fast charges. So for your vehicle, you still have, say, 400 kilometers of range. But if you stop at, say, somewhere like Voi on your way to Mombasa, you're able to stop for coffee while your vehicle is charging, and it will be full in the next 1 hour, and you can continue your journey. Save for the charging time, I think we are pretty comparative, or even better than your normal internal combustion engines, your diesel, your petrols. But we are mainly focused, and even all the EV players are mainly focused on the 95%, where the vehicle will be most of the time. And if you actually even think about it, you'll drive your vehicle to work today, you'll park it for the next 8 hours, and then go to work in the evening. So the charging is not a major issue per se, because at any given point, your vehicle will stop at about 8 or more hours. And if it's a fleet vehicle, it will be parked at night. So you always have an opportunity to charge. However, just to cover the 5%, there's fast charging infrastructure just to make sure you can stop for 1 hour while you're having coffee or while you're stretching your legs in a long journey, just to charge your vehicle and things like that. Yeah.
Okay, yes. Indeed, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of our use is for mobility within our workplaces, within the areas that we live. And if we're able to get the infrastructure for that, then we'll have moved a lot of miles forward. Okay, over to Isaiah. A question for you on, I think there have been some complaints that when you when you're charging from your home, you get an inflated electricity bill if you're charging your EV from home. Is this true? Is charging from the grid expensive, or what's your opinion on this? Have you been charging from home? I see. So you lift your hand about having an e-vehicle.
Yes. Maybe to answer that question, based on the prior experiences that I've had with EVs, that has been one of the most generic questions being asked around, especially about the consumption of power in terms of charging. One of the things is that we have two types of charging. So we have the 3-phase and also the single phase. Currently, the vehicles that I have are single phase, so we charge them for almost 3 hours. And you looking at the units per unit that we use is that is like 3 units to charge a full vehicle. That is the rickshaw, and that would cost you roughly 75 shillings, between 75 shillings to 100. That covers a whole range of 100 kilometers for the vehicles. So looking at the cost of power, I think it's really not really an inflated, it's not really, there's no inflation on that. Rather, it is more of, it really saves more on power in terms of what you want to use. Remember, the battery is actually like our fuel tank. So looking at what is currently happening in the market in relation to fuel and in relation to EVs, we are more at an advantage in cutting down costs that are likely to be experienced if then we were relatively using power. The other issue is that that has been kind of an assumption somebody has, that maybe this thing will use a lot of power because maybe they don't really have a full experience of that. But in relation to them that are bringing in electric vehicles, whether they're 4-wheelers, whether they're the buses, and what Alex is also saying is that basically there is that sense that power is well used. It's more economical. You're not using more units in terms of where you want to, depending with the range that you're covering. And there's a lot of efficiency in that. So I think I disagree with that to a larger extent because of what the figures that I've been able to see in relation to if I was using a normal internal combustion engine vehicle, where I know if I'm going to buy fuel, especially if you're using a rickshaw, you'd actually spend, for the same 100 kilometers, you'd spend maybe 2,000 or 1,500 Kenya shillings. So if I'm cutting that down to only 100 shillings or 75 to cover that, it makes much more sense to be able to adopt the EVs. So that's one. For the 3-phase, that one I can for sure say it's not really that the power goes up. It's basically because you want to speed up the charging process, but then relatively you may use maybe double or double of what units you would have used simply because of trying to just accelerate the speed. Because if then you want to charge maybe relatively half the time, if it is 3 hours, you want to charge maybe for 1.5 hours, then using a 3-phase, you're likely to use slightly more power, but then it is not really going to be that quite much. So in this case, maybe you spend maybe 200 shillings per unit. So so I would still disagree that there is really no much power that would actually be used in relation to charging of electric vehicles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think you make a really good case for EVs there. Are there papers, are there articles written about this? Because I think we need to demystify these kind of myths that are going around. Do you feel there's enough research done and enough academic papers or at least articles written to support the things that you're talking about in terms of costs?
Yeah, in terms of papers, I think going down the history, looking at especially on the areas pertaining to battery management, because there has been a long transition of trying to see which battery is suitable for EVs. 1900, they were using the lead oxide, the normal type of batteries. And they were EVs by then, but then they used to have a lot of problems and all that. But there are documents that are currently being developed for the last 3 years of EVs, because in the country currently, I think we are relatively between 3 to 4 years old, based on what I've seen with the companies that have come in EVs. And Mackenzie was able to document this year, and Shell, they were able to come up with a whole research that was cutting across Africa and talking about EVs, and they are documented. We also have one of the organizations that is trying to consolidate all the EVs together in Kenya today. I think it is just a recent organization that was also came up with a research that was actually showing what is, and so most of the research came out this year, and it was actually showing the consumption of power and how effective is, though much of it was so comparative in terms of the diesel or the petrol vehicle and also the EVs, and trying to sensitize or give a view of why we should easily adopt EVs. And they were able to point out some of those areas. And so it was very clear that in terms of power consumption, it was actually much more advantageous in relation to actually having an EV. Yes, range is an issue currently, but we're anticipating by the year 2040, 2030, looking at the trends, we are currently seeing that there are guys who are currently trying to improve the range of the battery. We don't anticipate that also with the improving of the range, that then there will be more power that will be consumed. We expect that us looking at the graph is that the same ratio is still actually being maintained. The only thing is that we just want to have more of the cells within the battery to increase the range that enables one to have a feel or a good experience. And as you said earlier, that we have a the vastness in Kenya. So somebody maybe wants to go to Busia border or Mombasa. We anticipate that maybe by the year 2030, somebody will have a single drive. You just charge one morning and you're all the way to Mombasa. So we are expecting with such transitions as the technology advances, then that will actually work. So papers are there. Currently, there are many that are coming up. The other day we saw Tesla was able to also just open most of their documents to allow everybody to be able to see what is currently, how they develop their vehicles and what they're doing in terms of their technology. And so with that, it gives us much more opportunity to tap into also knowing more because of the part of the challenge that we currently have in the country where people are not fully aware. Based on some of the questions people ask is that you'll find that it is because somebody still has the assumption that this thing is not really operating well based on the experience he has with the battery. We have very few people who also know that it is a lithium ion battery. For them, they still assume it is the normal type of battery, the lead oxide batteries that we currently use in most of these other vehicles.
Okay, thank you for that elaborate explanation. I think it makes a lot of sense that, you know, more research is coming out, more papers are getting out, and more players within the space are willing to share information on the kind of you know, technology that's coming up and what we can see in the future to come. Okay, I can see a lot of questions on the chat. Thank you for engaging with us. We'll come to that in a short while. Before we do that, I'd like us to launch a poll. I'll ask our secretariat at the World Energy Day Foundation to just launch our first poll, because it's something that we really want to look at. Yes, I think it's now launched. And it says in 2020, during the first e-mobility conference held in Nairobi, a target was set for 500,000 EVs to be deployed in Kenya over the next 5 years. Do you think that this is achievable? So by 2025, for us to have 500,000 EVs, do you feel that this is something that's plausible? I can see you answering. 42% of us have responded. Is it highly likely? Is it probable or highly unlikely? Give it a few more moments. If you haven't answered the poll, it's been put up. Okay. Give it a few more seconds. Okay, so let's end the poll. And to share the results. There you have it. 29% of us think it's highly likely. 54% are on the fence, they're like, maybe it's probable. And then we have 17% of us saying it's highly unlikely. I'd like to get the comments from our speakers. Alex, what do you think about this? And what was your response?
Highly unlikely.
Highly unlikely?
Yes.
You're part of the 17%. Oh, goodness.
Yes, and I have my reasons. Well, if you actually look at it, if you're buying an EV somewhere, say from the UK, China, one, you get full tax rebates. You're not paying any taxes, and there's a very good infrastructure that has already been developed. If you look at it now, 2025 is like 3 years from now, and EVs is a bit of a chicken and egg situation because guys are afraid of bringing EVs because of the infrastructure, and infrastructure cannot be built before guys bring in the car. So you're never certain of, should I bring my car and then hope someone will build the infrastructure, or should someone build the infrastructure first before the cars would come? And it being 3 years from now, if you import an EV right now, say Tesla, for example, which you'll buy at around 40,000 US dollars, you'll still pay the same taxes, say for 10% on excess duty as guys buying normal diesel cars. And that's really expensive. However, for us to actually get to a probable is the government fully rebates the taxes. So you're only probably paying, say, 5% on the IDF and RDL, just to allow more guys to bring the cars, and then a platform will develop from there. But before the government plays ball in terms of taxes, it will really be a challenge for us to get into 50,000 EVs by 2025, because one, they need to be fast, affordable. Remember, almost 95% of the cars being bought in Kenya right now, they're second and used cars from outside, from UK and Japan. And for you to buy a car worth, say, 8 million, that's an EV, it's really challenging until the government actually either gives you rebates on taxes or gives you some sort of incentives just for you to bring it in. Sort of like what Rwanda has done for the same. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Do you know what the numbers are right now? How many electric vehicles do you have currently?
In Kenya, I'm not certain of the electric bikes, but I'm guessing at about 1,000. And for electric cars, we are about 200 to 300, give or take. So for us to get 50,000, it's a very long shot. It's a very long shot. Yeah.
Yes. Indeed, we can see the difference if we are at 300 electric vehicles versus 500,000. I think a lot really needs to be done for us to get to that target. Isaiah, what did you respond to the poll, and what's your view on this?
I would actually say probably, probable. That was my, because looking at the companies and the dealers that are currently coming into the country, the number is actually growing quite fast. For the 3 years, we've been able to see over 20 EV companies coming, and most of them are currently promising to give big numbers. But technically, to some extent, I would look at first our policy. We've been able to sit down with the government to just find out from the Ministry of Industry and Technology, just to find out, and also the Ministry of Trade, though governments are willing to give incentives, we still don't have a clear policy guideline on the basis of infrastructure. The main contention is somebody wants to go with this vehicle to the country, maybe in a town in Eldoret or Busia. There is no infrastructure. How do I charge this vehicle? Nairobi, yes, we are currently trying to, most of these companies are based here in Nairobi. And so to us, the number looks more feasible. But then if you go down to most of the other parts of the country, the other towns, they would actually be certain to say unlikely based on those numbers. That's one. Number two, we have not really fully sensitized or informed people the necessity of adopting EVs. So mostly based on our mindset being so much on hell-bent on being a consumer, kind of being just on the end of being in the end of consumption. So somebody wants an EV complete. He doesn't want to know whether it is, how do I fix the battery? No, so long as I get it, should I drive it? How do I drive it? That's all. So mostly people buy vehicles to use it for moving from one point to another. And so nobody wants to take in to understand the awareness of how does it, what would be the maintenance range, what would be the cost, what would be the range that I'm using, will it really be effective like the other vehicle? So we still have those challenges that have not been addressed. As much as we would want to build the infrastructure and also lay out the policies, the government has not really, conversations are still being developed on where to start. So you'd find either do we have a curriculum base that would encourage that, because from one end, you'll also need experts or people who are likely to know what an EV is. So if I bring in an EV from China, do I know how to fix it if it breaks down on me? Or am I fully conversant with the infrastructure? What are some of the challenges? As much as it looks that simple, those things must be made concrete enough so that then it is put there. So we also have a government lobby issue that currently we see that even when they are doing budgeting, it's just that it is seen as a product. And so they are not really seeing the other aspects of the other areas that would really make it concrete. If you look at the developed countries, it's that it was so intentional that they looked at the infrastructure, they put up policy guideline, they had standardizations. We also have those challenges coming in, where somebody buys a vehicle which has a different port for charging, and there is no standardization. So even if I promise somebody that I'll be having some swap stations within certain locations, if he has a different model that cannot actually fit my swap station, then we can't easily be able to assist that person. So some of these issues can be fast addressed. And looking at it, these are conversations that are currently ongoing within the EV to come up with a more concrete approach by which we can easily now then endorse. We also feel that as much as, yes, there are players who are willing to bring in more and invest in this, because one of the countries that has been seen to be highly to adopt EVs is Kenya. As much as Rwanda has really made so much strides, Kenya within East Africa is actually seen to be likely to be the next to adopt. With the current, the past few months, we've seen the inflation of power and people are opting out. Where do we get EVs? And we were able to see many people in Google searching if then they would be able to get a vehicle that would really cut down on cost. And so we are likely to see that coming up. And with those factors being there, and we are hoping that that would actually bring that number, we are likely to meet maybe, so let us say maybe 100,000 by that time, but it should be something that we endear all of us to do as we consider these other factors that are currently need to be made concrete enough for us to be able to see that achieved to 500,000.
Thank you, Isaiah. I think you pointed to a lot of issues that need to be addressed. Some of which include, government and policy, and the kind of support that we need from the government to be able to see this goal come to being. Alex, a lot of questions about the charging station, and I know there's a lot of questions about battery swapping as well, which has come as one of the solutions that might help us to increase the range and the amount of time used for charging. What are some of the challenges that you could foresee in terms of battery swapping, and how can we make it easier for us?
So in terms of battery swapping, for electric bikes, it sort of makes sense because of the weight of the battery, which is roughly 15 to 20 kgs. So it's just easy. You go into a charging pod, either an M-Pesa shop, somewhere that has the nice cabinets, you put in your battery, remove it, put another one, and you continue to your journey. Because not many people are willing to wait for 3, 4, 5 hours for the battery to charge, hence the swap model for electric bikes. However, for cars, it's slightly different because of one, the weight that's needed, and the sort of tech that's needed to make it make sense. So so the battery in an electric vehicle, your normal car, it's about 400 plus kgs. And then there's a lot of wiring, almost 100 plus wires. There's a lot of things that can go wrong if you keep plugging it in and out, because the battery is still at a structural point. So for electric vehicles, the four-wheelers, we are still lagging as opposed to electric two-wheelers, mainly because the battery is a major structural point in the vehicle. You don't need people trying to move it and putting it back. However, there's a company, I think in China, called NIO, and they're playing about with you going into your normal Total, your Shell, park at a service station, the battery is removed, and someone puts a new one back, and you go to your journey, taking less than 5 minutes, about the same time it will take you to fuel. However, the major challenge with the swap model is, say me and you, we are not the same type of drivers. There is, say, Isaiah, who is really careful with the battery, and there is Alex, who's really careless. So when I have my battery, I'm always really fast. It's always falling down. I'm always crashing and things like that. So it's still a challenge for you to pick a battery that has been used by someone else, because of generally the use. Because say your battery will take you 100 kilometers, and then if you take a battery from Linet, it's taking you 70 kilometers because of how Linet uses their battery. So there's a bit of a challenge, which I'm sure guys are trying to figure out. So the swap model, to be honest, it's not something we're really vouching for, because of the tech and the risks involved. And again, we're in the four-wheeler space. We'd rather just one battery, one car. We are able to trace that battery ever since we got the car, and when we're taking it out of the car, say in the next 15 years, the battery no longer gives you 400 kilometers, it's now giving you 200, and we're able to trace it. But now if the battery goes into different cars, there's a bit of a challenge of traceability, because remember, one of the issues that also comes with this is what happens with the batteries in the next 15 years, the next 20 years. It's not like your car that you just take your engine and put a new one. So there's a bit of a risk of people saying there will be a lot of electrical waste. So with this traceability, we'll say we had a Nissan, Linet had a car, and the battery was fine. So what do we do with this battery? We are able to take that battery again and repackage it into a standalone system. So this battery they're no longer fit for use into electric cars, but they can be used into solar home systems, into making power packs for schools, for hospitals, for guys in portable, say guys who are doing mining and they need portable power to use it outside the field. So we keep reducing the energy use from vehicles to solar, into street lighting and things like this. But all this would make sense if there's a traceability from the word go. So we are able to know this battery was in Linet's car. Linet is pretty careful. this is how it was used, as opposed to having different people using it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that response. I think you've touched even on a question that Cindy has asked about, what's a plan for us to dispose the e-waste that comes from these vehicles. And I think you said we can repurpose the batteries into home use, and after that maybe we can see how to use this a little better where the energy needs are less. But I think you make a very valid point on traceability, that it is really essential so that we are able to trace a battery from when it comes into the country to at the point of disposal, which is really important. Isaiah, what kind of strategies does Utility have in terms of e-waste? Have you thought about it, and what strategies have you put in place?
Currently, at our initial stages, we basically what Alex is saying, mostly lithium-ion batteries can be used later, maybe for solar. My battery packs for the rickshaws would actually take me 5 years before I really dispose them. That's the main thing that I have. The motor that I have is quite robust with the gear that has been put to allow the vehicle stay longer. So looking at how to handle the wastes, we currently are looking at also the other companies just at the initial stages. We really won't really have that clear process by which we do the disposal, because we also anticipate that with the introduction of maybe swap stations, as we are looking at it, we are trying to look at either internally within as our company, the model of batteries that we have are the ones that we would actually put in the several swap stations, and we'd only recommend that they are used with our own vehicles. So that means the Ability Taskman is the only one. So if somebody buys it independently from us, so we anticipate that the battery that comes into the swap station to be swapped should be the similar battery or the same battery that the vehicle came with, and only maybe use the traceability, as Alex is pointing out, to ensure that we maintain that. And with that, then we should be able to know and gauge and analyze. Remember, battery maintenance for us, like in Ability, we now currently have an app. So every day before the vehicle leaves, the driver has to confirm that all the cells are operating well, so that it reduces in case of maybe the range or maybe anything likely to happen. Yes, there's a likelihood of where maybe somebody does not actually put the battery well in power. Remember, this is a lithium-ion battery, and so what actually happens is, if then I go to a little bit of a periodic table, we are talking about the first group and the seventh, that is the halogens. So in this, we're expecting that the electrons, while we are talking about discharging in use, is that the electrons are moving in one direction. And we also, when we are charging, we expect that the reverse of the same path. And so if somebody does not actually mount the battery properly in power, the required terminals, then we are likely to have that battery getting damaged. And with that, then that should be disposed. So how then do we dispose this? So either it is by you removing the cells and maybe shredding all of them and maybe disposing them or burning them just to reduce any fires. But we also have a lot of that would actually lead to air pollution. So currently we are not in that stage. Looking at also the other companies that are coming up, we are seeing they are bringing in still small numbers of vehicles, whether they are four-wheelers, three-wheelers, or two-wheelers. So the numbers are quite small. And so any of those challenges we are seeing, either somebody is just grounding the vehicle and that's it, and maybe pursues to get another one that will be able to replace the vehicle that is there. And so most of those things are just still left intact. Because in Africa, I've really not seen fully any recycling of any of the, especially electrical components. We've never seen that. Like in our computers, we have similarly the same battery that is actually being used in EVs. And so when we dispose most of these computers and our laptops, we've never seen any recycling taking place. So I think there is still a risk that is likely to come up, but it's something worth watching and following up to the letter as a promise that enables the clients who want to use or have an electric vehicle, and also engaging the government in relation to that, to address that based on some of the numbers that are currently coming in most of the developed countries like China, which currently is growing quite fast, and the US, how do they handle, I think in US recently we've seen any of the EVs is quite of runoff and it's not able to run again. They have a plant where much of that disposal is taking place, and they're able to see what to do with it to just safeguard any excess pollution that is likely to come out, especially from the battery aspect.
Okay, thank you, Isaiah, for that. I think when you talk about the laptop batteries, we had a speaker from the We Center in I think the fourth webinar, and she was talking about how they're collecting e-waste and recycling it. So there's hope even here in the country that hopefully they can expand their operations to include batteries from e-mobility. So thanks for that. I think, Alex, I can see a question from Michelle asking, what is the conversion rate of internal combustion engine boda riders to e-bikes? And what type of two-wheelers does Equita Mobility offer? I think the other questions have been answered in the course of our conversation. Could you just address this question, Alex?
Yes. As of this moment, we are not in the two-wheeler space. We are designing something to be in the space in the next probably 3-4 months. But then again, we'll still be in the fleet space, because we think that makes a lot of sense for someone to have more than one borders in their space. Majorly, we are in the either hotel transport or in a van space. It's sort of a last mile. So take your matatu. So this is, take your matatu, for example. So that's the form factor we are in to deliver goods out and about. On the conversion rates, is it about energy or is it about the cells? If you can just confirm that.
Okay, we'll ask Michelle to. Michelle, are you there?
Hello, hi.
Hi.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for the presentation you've given. Now, my question is, in terms of usage, so the normal boda riders, are they adopting electric motorbikes? That's mainly my question. And what is their view towards it at this point in time? Because again, they're the largest segment that you would be targeting in terms of this usage, aside from the personal transportation. So yeah, I'd just like to know, so far, how is it this year or last year, for example?
I don't know how to answer this. So far, I've been in touch with about 10 boda riders who use an EV, and they're pretty excited.
Okay.
However, the business model that most of the players are going with is you buy the bike minus the battery. The reason is there's a technology risk that comes with the battery, and most of the people, sorry.
Go ahead, Alex.
And most of the people would like to completely own the asset. So when you detach the bike from the battery, it's a bit of an issue. However, I'd sit on the fence on this, because on one end, when I buy a bike, I want it to be fully mine. You know, I can go with it to Kisii, to Nairobi, anywhere I want. And at the same time, I want it to last for as long as possible. So most companies are trying to make sure they'll give you a bike with a battery, but the battery is still owned by the company. So say Equator Mobility, for example. The reason for this is they want to make sure the battery will be in a very good condition the next 4, 5, 6 years. And in case there's an issue with the battery, is the company that takes responsibility for that. Because it's pretty tricky for me as a border rider in Karen to order battery from China, as opposed to someone like Equator Mobility saying, hey, you give me a battery, it's supposed to be 100 kilometers, it's now doing 10, give me another one, you know? And then, so again, going back to the policy, it's really expensive for you to bring in an electric bike as a full unit. So that's the frame plus the battery. So if we decouple the bike from the battery, you're able to be at par with your normal TVS, with your normal borders. So it will still cost the same. You can still use it the same, only that you don't own the full bike. You just own the frame, not the battery, but you can still use it. It's a bit confusing, I know, but it'll make sense in time because of the technology risk involved with batteries. Yeah.
Just Michelle, does that answer your question?
Yes, it partially answers, because I know probably the battery costs almost more than half the price of the whole unit itself. So the de-risking a rider from that, then it makes it easier for you to want to get an electric bike. So yeah, you've answered my questions. That's okay. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Michelle. Just Alex, just to clarify, does then the person lease the battery from the company, or what working model do they have with the company for the battery?
So different Kenyan entities are doing it differently. So there's one that would lease the battery for an X amount per day. And there is another one that has swap stations. So you just pay power, you know. It's just like KPLC. You don't own the meter, you're just paying for the power. So you'll go into your charging station, you've used 80%, you pay for the 80% and take another battery and continue your journey, which to be honest, according to me, makes a lot of sense, because the technology is someone else's problem and not mine. And the purpose for that is Kenyans are pretty smart. There's always someone that will come from Kirinyaga and sell you another charger. But just like Bilitia said, lithium ion, to be honest, are pretty unforgiving, especially if someone is, for lack of better words, not careful enough. You know, if you use a wrong charger, it starts to blow up. There's a lot of safety issues that come with lithium batteries. So that's why a lot of companies would rather keep it in-house, just to make sure it's charged correctly. I mean, it's being used correctly, because in the setup of a lithium battery is something called a BMS. So this manages the use of the BMS. So if you bring the battery and it has an issue, I have the infrastructure and the tech know-how to know what happened. I'm able to check out the batteries and things like that. So most people would rather just, you use your battery, Ikisha, come to my station, swap the battery, and you go do your own things, which it's pretty honest, which honestly is pretty nice. And then it brings the cost of the bike really low, because you only buy half the bike. Yeah.
I think you really answered that well, but you've also brought up a question that is I can see in a lot of people's questions about the cost of electric vehicles, and is there hope? At least there seems to be hope for electric motorbikes with half the cost of the battery being eliminated. What about electric vehicles? Because when you Google how much it is, you almost want to take, you know, you want to stand up and run away and just go for that fuel or diesel car.
Yes.
What steps can be taken for us to adopt more EVs?
Yes.
To move to the goal.
So I'll split this into two things. So there's what you call CapEx. So that's the capital expenditure to buy your EV. And there's what you call an OpEx. So that's your operating expenditure. So, okay, you already have the vehicle in country. So the much you pay, that's your CapEx. So that's buying the car. And then the much you pay for running your car normally, that's your OpEx. unfortunately, so in business, there's what you call a demand and supply. So there's very few EVs first. So, and the demand is pretty high. So not many people are willing to sell their EVs because they're 10 or less years old. And again, because it's still a new technology, there's still that fear of, okay, how about I buy the car today and tomorrow it does not work, the battery is bad. What do I do? So there is that fear. So because of that, the price is really high. It's really high to buy one car. We're talking about really high prices, upwards of about 5 million thereabouts, going up. And for you to import, you're still paying the same taxes. There's no tax breaks. And unfortunately, the policy that we have in Kenya right now was made in the 80s, even before EVs were a conversation. So we still, unfortunately, we are being punished for a policy that was not meant for us. Now, what is the OPEX? If you'll be saving 60 to 80% based on your running, on your EVs, it does make sense, especially if you're a high utilization user. So your vehicle is always on the go, it's always running. It makes a lot of sense, which is now your OPEX. So, and unfortunately, or rather fortunately, in those two OPEX and CAPEX, that's where now Equator Mobility comes in. We understand it's really expensive for you to buy these units, and we're willing to take that risk of buying the units and having them in-house, and then leasing it to you guys, or rather to different clients. So while you're still figuring it out, okay, EVs make sense on paper, but you've never owned one, you've never driven one, you've probably never even been in one. So we'll say, well, we understand you want an EV and probably is unachievable at this moment. So we will lease you an EV you'll use for 1 year, and then you'll see if it makes sense for you. So as opposed to paying 4 million, now you're paying, say, 150,000 per month for you to use it. And then we check all the risks from you. We'll be paying insurance, we'll be doing the maintenance for you, we'll be doing the tires for you. So that vehicle in one morning does not start, bring you a new one, take it out, fix it, and return it. So you as a client, it makes sense not to invest into a new unit, into an untested technology, by using, by leasing it for an X amount of period, say 6 months, 1 year, 4 years. So it allows you to actually see if it actually makes sense for you, as opposed to buying a new unit, your own, and then you have it, one, you don't know how to maintain it, you don't know how to probably set up a few things and installation. So for EV sector, the CAPEX is still unobtainable for many. And we do understand that, and that's why we're coming in and say, we'll bring you the vehicles, just come in, say what you want, we'll cost it up for you and say, we'll bring you a vehicle, this is how much we'll charge you to lease it, and then we can do all the back end. We'll maintain it for you, we'll set up the charging station, we'll do the insurance for you. So your work is just to use it and see if it makes sense. And then in a year or two, when it doesn't make sense for you, just return it and lease it out somewhere else. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Is there a lease to own model at some point? Will I use it for 2-3 years, then just return it, or can I own it at the end of the?
Yeah. So as of today, it's just a lease and then you return at the end. But we are working on probably the next 1 month. If you lease it for the next 2 years and you're actually happy with it, we'll just work out how much you've been paying this far, and we are able to sell it to you. So you'll have 3 options. 1, you are able to return it. 2, you can buy it. Or 3, you can exchange it with someone better, with something better. So you say, well, I like it, but I want something that probably can carry more, or I want, a lesser range or more range and things like that. So you're able to bring it back, and we swap it out for you for something else which is bigger. But now you'll have to have used it first for it to make sense, and then you can have that conversation at the end of your lease period on which of the 3 options you'd like.
Thank you. I think that's a really innovative solution for us to, test out the EVs into the market, and just to get more people to use electric vehicles. I think that's really, really innovative. I don't know if you've experienced any challenges so far with the model here in Kenya. A lot of people want to own things. It's really hard in the Kenyan market to have the lease model. What kind of challenges have you experienced so far?
So just off the bat is still just the landing cost of the vehicles are expensive, and the guys you're competing with are, they cost half as much, a third as much, and things like that. It's really a challenge for you to compete in such a sector. And then if every time you go into someone and say, I'm bringing the vehicle to you, this is how much it costs. It does make sense, but not many people are willing to look beyond the sticker price, because if I'm leasing the vehicle for you at an X amount, and then you use your petrol vehicle for X plus something amount, because remember, you still need to do your insurance, you still need to do your maintenance and all this. But if someone offers you a solution that it looks a bit expensive, but if you look at your OPEX per month, you're actually probably spending twice as much. It's only that it's not properly broken down on how much you're spending maintenance. Every 5,000 kilometers, you have to change your oils, you have to change your brakes, and all this. But now I'm giving you a car that you're certain it will always be on the road. EVs have, I think, 90% less moving parts as a normal car, a normal combustion car, which means there's very, very little maintenance. We have one of our vehicles that has been out for almost a year, and it has never come back for even a brake change. It's still in a very good condition. So if you even look at a downtime of things like this, the efficiency that comes with this, the sustainability, how much your savings, the OPEX, and then there's a certainty for fuel prices. If it goes up in the next 10%, you're still saving. So provided fuel is always above 80%, you're saving all that amount. But now, if you look at it currently, fuel will never even go less than 100 shillings in Kenya in the next period. So the capex is a bit high, but if you look at the fine print, you're actually saving a lot more money moving into EV. And of course, the brand equity that comes with it by saying, okay, I've embraced new technology. And we have clients that are actually getting better business by embracing EV. Guys are saying, oh, wow, you have a better car, it's driving better. Drivers are actually comfortable now with the cars. And more clients are saying, well, clearly, you're thinking about the environment, you're thinking about sustainability and things like this. We'd like to work with you more, because most companies, most corporates, especially multinationals, are thinking into that direction. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Alex. And I think we've answered Wanale James's question, as well as Tadeo. Yes, Tadeo's question on the initial costs. I think the other question that James has asked is on, and I'll table this to Isaiah, that temperature has a direct impact on batteries. How is this being handled? Have you experienced this challenge with the ability three-wheelers? Isaiah?
Yes. Now, maybe to answer that question, I think one of the things that we should look at for EVs in Africa, and especially like here in Kenya, the climate is quite favorable for the batteries to be conducive enough to even give you the full range. One of the things is that the safety of battery management is one of the key things that has been one of the global standardization measure before you have an EV on the road. So it's to ensure that within the given temperature ranges. So far in Bility, we've not had any challenges with the temperature, especially on the basis of how the battery is well covered, because that is the only thing that we are much more careful to ensure that in case maybe it is at extremely cold temperatures, is it still being able to operate. So basically the casing is what would actually be one of the key things that would be supportive to in assisting one way of maybe preventing any extreme temperatures on both ends. So whether it is it's quite hot, or the temperatures are high, or they're extremely low, we will be able to work with the cover as a one way of safety measure. Yes, there are stories that are going around the world that where you hear that the battery, and especially there are some places in India where the temperatures are extremely high at even 80 or 60 degrees, just going up, and find that in some areas we've had. But for our case, based on finding out if our vehicles have been working there, we've seen they're still working conducively well based on those precautions that have been taken earlier. But then it is still also something that is also being looked at because of the other vehicles having those similar challenges. We've had, if then the casing was not well embossed or it was not well covered, then it experiences heat, then it tampers with the cells, and that also affects the range and also may do a lot of other malfunctioning within the vehicle. So I think that would be the main issue. The other issues that are always there based on the safety of just charging the vehicle. If, for example, you're charging it, and if you're charging it, if you're charging the vehicle and the vehicle is not, when you put it, maybe the power source that you're using and the adapter you're using, if then that adapter is not well configured in the power, then we expect such incidences of maybe that maybe exploding or the battery completely malfunctioning. Those are some of the incidences that are likely to the ones that have been able to come across. But for in our case in Biliti, we are currently okay. The only thing is maybe just make sure that the charger is not in a wet ground where maybe it comes across water. That can affect the charger that you're using to charge the vehicle. That can also affect the battery. Also the power source that you're using, you must also be very careful to use it so that it doesn't also cause any fires. And those fires, if then it happens to get to the battery, then we expect something catastrophic to happen. So those are things that we are likely to watch. But in the case of temperature, the climate currently, and especially in Africa, it's not that extreme as some of the other areas, especially along the equator. So we are having the batteries well functioning and operating well, because that is the major thing that would really affect the performance or the functioning of the EVs. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that answer. I think it means for us then it is built for Africa for sure. Our temperatures are not something that would blow up the batteries. Is something that says, this is our technology. I think still on you, Isaiah, a lot of the three-wheelers that we've seen brought into the market have really gone into, the commercial space. It's either deliveries, and even some of the, bikes, actual bikes have gone into deliveries and those kinds of companies. Does this mean that the passenger side of three-wheelers has not yet picked up, or is there no market, or is the model not easily implementable? What is your view on this?
One of the things is looking at most of these companies setting up, and especially like even Biliti, we are looking at what happened during COVID, majorly what was moving. And I believe I would agree with Alex on the basis that most people wanted maybe things delivered to their homes, food and all this. And so there was a little bit of movement, especially on the population, until recently when we had the COVID ban being lifted, and then we resumed to the normalcy of seeing people now coming in. That would be one of the factors that would have allowed most of the companies coming into commercial, because the e-commerce sector, especially on things to do with people like Jumia, Bolt, and Glovo, most of them wanted, people were making orders, and there was that disrupt. And so most of the businesses saw that as an opportunity. And so the two-wheelers, remember at one point I was managing a fleet of around 15. So we even had liquor. People were taking liquor home because bars were closed. The curfew period was not good enough for them to. So you'd find people are ordering liquor at night, late at night, and the only guys who can be given a curfew pass are either the border people. And so you'd find that most of the companies that were coming in terms of fleet, found that to be favorable to allow them also grow their business. But also in the area of passenger, we still have not fully structured commuter services that it's not really clear today. At one point, we had a suggestion of trying to introduce trains in different strategic areas to just make sure that we have people ferried to the city. The circles are not making the environment much conducive, and I believe the experience of Basigo, currently we also having Rome introducing an electric bus. Not everybody wants, especially the bus owners, they don't find it much conducive based on maybe the experiences they have, whether they took the vehicle on loan or what. So these are some of the other small factors that would affect us coming into the passenger or trying to develop a passenger. So there are no clear structures in that also. And also we also have issues pertaining to charging. We're not looking at the policy in terms from that, because we're looking at a vehicle that would be parking in a bus station or somewhere maybe within CBD, and it is ferrying people out of town or bringing them back to town. And so some of these factors are the ones that currently, as most of the EV companies are trying to look at. Even the two-wheelers, the challenges they have is that maybe you're taking somebody somewhere far and you're looking at your charge and you're realizing that it won't really take that person to that direction. And that has been a challenge, especially to guys who are like this taxi service that use the electric vehicles. I think the Nissan Leaf, they've restricted their movement within the zones where they have their specialized charges, where they can charge the vehicles easily along Westlands, maybe within CBD and some parts of Thika Road and also Kilimani, those areas. Because if you go beyond those zones, if you, let us say you want to go maybe to the neighboring county, there is no charge there. So it becomes very difficult for you to be able to come to have the vehicle. So some of those constraints would be some of the things that are making us still go slow on the past. Maybe use the Uber approach, if that can work. But we anticipate that most of that to just try and make it organized to allow now that commuting and introducing that. But a thumbs up for people like Basigo, Rome, who are trying to also get into that slowly, just by promising that with the time, then they can also engage the bus owners to see the need of either retrofitting the current vehicles they have into being EVs as they introduce charging stations, and also maybe adopting and buying new large buses just to try and make that area more structured and organized. Currently, it's quite noisy and becomes a bit difficult, and especially investors are feeling that until there is something much clear. So that's why Nopia has an advantage, because they decided to adopt the app approach of using Uber and Bolt that has enabled them able to make a bit of more strides. But it is still constraining them. There are zones they can't actually go beyond because of the limitations of the range of the vehicle. And so they are just given the regions where they see there is high demand, and that's where they maybe put their charging. So those are some of the key things that has made most of the companies not really go into EVs. The promising areas are the e-commerce, where we have Jumia, Sendi, Kilimall, all these companies that are doing more of delivering things in the last mile. It becomes much easier to offer that service, and it has no much of, a lot of processes with it. It's just a matter of the vehicle is able to deliver, and it also meets the same range And so working with that, it makes it much easier for people to likely adopt the commercial end rather than the passenger.
Thank you, Isaiah. I think we can see why the commercial space would make more sense for the adoption of EVs. We hope that through the commercial space, then we can get more infrastructure built up for the passengers as well. So as we continue on, I'd like us to launch our second poll, because it tackles most of the issues that we are talking about. I'll ask our admin to just launch our second poll. And there we have it. Which of the following do you think is the biggest barrier to the adoption of EVs in the region? There's unsupportive policies, limited charging infrastructure, unawareness or a stigma, financial constraints. Some of you are asking, might want to ask us to add all of the above, but we are asking that you choose one that you feel is, if it was addressed, then it would change the space for e-mobility. Okay, you can see half the people have responded. Please respond to the poll that's on your screen so that you can have more opinions. Okay, 57%. I'll give it another 10 seconds. Okay. All right, you can end the poll. And share the results. Yes, there you have it. So 44% feel that the biggest barrier is unsupportive policies in place. Then you have 25% talking about financial constraints. Then we have 17% saying it's an awareness, just lack of awareness. And then there's a limited charging infrastructure as the last one at 14%. So thank you for your responses to the poll. And I'll go to Alex with the second one, which is financial constraints, because we've touched on the policies a bit. Alex, is there financing in the EV space? Is it sufficient? Are there some barriers to us getting enough financing for EVs?
Yes. I think about 3 weeks or a month back, NCB has invested 2 billion into the EV space. So they're saying, if you want to bring an EV, we are able to finance you. We have the money, just come to our doors and this will be available. Obviously, most of the cars, especially in fleet and in the corporate space, they're usually financed in. And we're having talks with different banks just to say, you can finance these cars to bring them in, and we will maintain them for you. Yeah. So right now, as it stands, we have NCBA. We've had also talks with ABSA, who I think we're just about to close that. And then National Bank is also coming to the space. So I think if we give it about the end of the year, we should have a lot of banks that are willing to get into the space, because it's the new cake, and a lot of companies are trying to invest into that. So yes, there's financing right now, and it will be better in the next 3 to 6 months.
Okay, there's hope, my people. There's a lot of hope. If we go by Alex's words, a lot of banks looking to get into the space, and other financiers as well. So hopefully this will accelerate the adoption of EVs into the market. Isaiah, in the three-wheeler space, do you feel there's sufficient financing, or is a lot of is it self-funded by the companies?
Currently looking at, if I look at some of the companies, most of them were self-funded when they were starting at the initial stages. Our company actually is fully self-funded, but then we have started also talking with other financial companies just to try and see if we can support them that would want to buy and have the vehicles. And I agree with Alex. It has been an engagement more than, I think, 3 months or 2 months ago. I was able to see a full support on financing, maybe dealers who wanted to bring in EVs, and there were grants that were also coming in from other organizations on the issue of actually supporting the EV space. We've been able to see some companies that like Rome were able to get a lot of funding this year just to steer their processes in terms of manufacturing and bringing in more of the EVs. And so in the financial space, especially for also rickshaws, there is a lot that is coming. There's a lot of funding that is coming in for us. So I think, as Alex says, I fully support and I agree. Looking at the way it is that in the conversations and the talks, there is a lot of promise, and we've also seen that not only just merely a promise, but also some of these financial institutions coming in strongly to say they really want a share, seeing that this is working, and them also having an experience to also support the space in relation to the power, the issue of fuel inflation. I think that is also one of the other things that I was able to see that came in strongly in terms of actually boosting the financing. So for us as three-wheelers, there is a lot of financing, and also especially also the two-wheelers. I've seen a lot of companies that are going in, being allowed to be able to import and bring in based on the government incentives of not charging any taxes, but allowing you to have the vehicle come in and maybe paying the VAT. That's the only area that I've seen a bit of that, but there is that full support.
Thanks, Isaiah. I think the other question that I had for you was, we see a lot of manufacturers, a lot of the manufacturing for EVs is done outside, and we're just importing. Do you foresee us having manufacturing plants in Africa? Does Bility have any plans to bring a manufacturing plant here in Kenya or Africa?
Yes, there is actually a foreseeable. There's a promise. Most of the companies that are bringing in EVs, and especially for two-wheelers, have been advised, because there was a bill that was passed that would want to much more of the work should be done here. Because initially, when you are bringing in a border, and let us say a TVS, and you bring it complete, there was nothing that the country was making, and especially in terms of offering jobs and those other opportunities that we expect. So with that bill coming into force, most of the manufacturers were told to identify, and especially in the COMESA zone, to identify what are some of the key components that they are able to only import and the other local materials, so that then they are able to work with the companies that they are getting the product from to have the assembly plants developed, or a manufacturing plant developed here. The other area on that was trying to identify some of the raw materials, especially for the battery. So things like lithium, cobalt, and all these other materials that would be used, and is there also knowledge and expertise on the same. So these are some of the things that are currently underway in the process of seeing how then do we be able, how do we also own EVs being manufactured in Africa. It is true, currently 3/4 of all the vehicles coming in are already built outside, and if then maybe they are at they are knocked down, it is semi-knocked down, so you only come and do a bit of assembly, tighten a few areas, and there's a list of modifications that you can do for that. And so you'll be able to just work with it based on the manufacturer's specs that they have given. And there are also variations of maybe standards and the configurations that maybe they were designed. They were either designed for the Europe market, either for the Americas market, or they're in the Chinese market. So when you bring it in Africa, there are also a bit of other challenges. And so these are some of the things that are propelling some of the investors to really look forward to coming into Africa to meet the factors that are relevant to have an EV that is convenient for Africa. So yes, as Bility, we are looking forward to have a manufacturing plant in Kenya. Just that we have started, we are planning that the first batches that we'll be bringing in, yes, maybe they're semi-knocked down. Because remember, as I bring in, as I look forward to have a manufacturing plant, one, I should develop the expertise. That means I should have somebody who understands the vehicle in and out to be able to assemble the vehicle here and also repair in case there is a breakdown. So one of the key areas to motivate us to move in that direction is to begin talking also with institutions and develop maybe content that is relevant so that whatever type of vehicle is brought in, we are able to see how we address it. So there is that is actually happening. Yes, we have a bit of also some areas where there are limitations, especially in the high end of four-wheelers where we have vehicles like Tesla. They are looking at mostly giving countries all their measures. That means you should have their charging, you should understand their charging, you should understand the vehicle in and out and all that. And so there is a bit of capital on that end. But as being a consumer kind of nation, you'll find that the only end that works out is, can we bring the vehicle complete? So we are likely to have more dealers, but how do we supplement these dealers? It is to either build a manufacturing where if then the battery, we can have another battery being made here. If it is parts that are locally, we can easily also get those parts, and so we're able to repair the vehicles. So those arrangements are being made, but it will really take a little bit of time before we fully actualize. We have, I think, 2 companies that are currently proposing, to 2 or 3 companies. Mostly the two-wheelers, most of them are saying they're willing to adopt quite fast. So get the parts, get the chassis, frame, if they are able to make a similar one here and be able to assemble. Why we also find it a bit difficult to also have an assembly plant partly is also the registration based on the bodies that are set up in the country that would allow you to have an assembly here. So it's a policy issue, but currently we are seeing they are trying to loosen some of those measures to just allow the EVs come in, assemble the vehicle, and be able to run and conduct business and maybe registered and allowed to run in the Kenyan roads, also in Africa. So we are looking all into those areas. And yes, there is a lot of promise, which we expect maybe in the next 5 years, we may have several assembly plants.
All right, thanks. Thank you, Isaiah. I can see time is not on our side. So I'll ask just to have a comment from a comment or question from an audience member. If you feel you have a burning question or comment, please raise your hand. I think we've tried to answer as much as possible the questions from the chat, but you could answer. We want to hear a voice of somebody from the audience. Anyone, or do I call on someone? Anyone with a question? No questions? Okay, so as we wait for questions, I think I'll ask for final comments from our speakers. Alex, please give us your final comment in a minute.
Thank you for this platform. It's really interesting to have a conversation among your peers and guys who are in the same space. Our doors are open. You don't necessarily need to buy or lease. You're able to email me, talk to me, and I can deconstruct the entire process of electric vehicles, the upside. I can demonstrate some of the upsides of going EV as opposed to combustion engines. And it's really interesting where the space is going. And we're really trying to lobby the government to offer incentives. We've also gone into cabs to set standards for electric cars. We formed associations such as Association of Electric Mobility Developers in Africa. And we're just trying to make sure that when the electric vehicles reach critical mass, especially in Kenya and Africa at large, it will be Africans for Africans. We'll be the one maintaining it. And by building this platform with different stakeholders, we're even able to develop curriculum that will even go into schools and say, the world is moving into EVs. This is what you should know. This is how you're able to probably shift your curriculum, just to make sure that guys coming from schools, they're fit to go into the market and able to service and maintain these cars. And also clients who are willing to go to the EV space. We also have solutions for that. You're able to talk to us and we can completely deconstruct the process of either owning or leasing or just getting into the space so that it makes sense without you primarily investing into it on the onset. So yeah, thank you for this space. It has been an honor having me and looking forward to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex. And please share your contacts on the chat. You can see a few people asking for that so that people can reach out. If you need an EV, please see Alex behind the tent. He will provide you with all the information that you might need. Okay, final comment from you, Isaiah. Let's keep it a minute.
Yeah, so I want to thank you guys for such a forum and also to share more of what we are currently doing in the EV space. It's quite a good forum for people to know that it's not really just a passive space. It's quite an exciting space as much as it looks, but then I would encourage that looking at it from all the aspects, from the manufacturing, from the dealership end, from the charging station, there are much more opportunities. When I look at the EV space, I'm not seeing so much of what actually currently happens in automotive space, where there are many parts and all these parts must meet some specific expectations before the vehicle is actually on the road. Alex said we have reduced that. And so we have a lot of opportunities that people can easily quickly take and adopt the EVs. And looking at what is currently happening from the financing space to us who are bringing in the vehicles and also setting up these companies up, we would want to encourage that you can easily engage with us. Ask us anything, we'll be able to show you. If you're also interested in vehicles, we are in the market to be able to offer you that. If you're setting up companies on the side, remember, we necessarily don't want you to own the EVs. You want us to support your ideas. Maybe you are getting into the e-commerce space. We are readily available to ensure that we're able to meet that and work together to support some of these ventures and ideas that are coming up. So thank you so much. I hope to hear from guys. In case you need, I will be able to also share my contacts there. Yeah. Any other further queries, I'll be ready to answer.
Yes, so there you have it, audience. Isaiah says there are opportunities in the EV space. So this is the time to take this up. I hear a lot of opportunities in the infrastructure, in the servicing, in a lot of collaboration, and there's also financing in the space. So if you want to get into this space, this is the time to do so. you could start a business, you could collaborate with the rest of the people in the space. I can see your hand up, Zakaria Corito. Please give us a comment or question.
Oh, thank you very much. I don't know whether I'm visible. I just wanted to make a quick comment as you wrap up that this presentation was very insightful, and for us as the National Standards Body. Perhaps I've not introduced myself. My name is Zakaria Corito, and I'm the Chief Manager in charge of Standards Development and Trade at Kenya Bureau of Standards. I have been following the discussion, and it's very critical that as we move into this electric e-mobility space, we as Kenya Bureau of Standards have specifically established a technical committee that looks into the standardization aspects cutting across all those related areas in the EV mobility, including the vehicles themselves. You look at the charging infrastructure, the batteries. We have a wide range of standards that we are looking into so that we can also quickly facilitate the development of this particular industry. That will be my quick input, and I know the presenters have already mentioned about standards in their presentation. We are really engaging all stakeholders, and I would really encourage those who are entering into this space to check on our website and look at the e-mobility technical committee and the work that is ongoing in this sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Zakaria. As you can see, the government is here with us, and they're doing something about the standards. So thank you so much, Zakaria. Please share your contacts as well, so that we can also engage with you. I can see.
I'll share the chat.
Yes.
I'll share the chat, the email right away.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks for the work that you're doing to put up standards, and we are open to also be part of the team that does this. Geoffrey, I don't know how to say that, but I'd like to hear from you because you're representing Ugandans who we have a lot of people from Uganda here. Okay, so Geoffrey, I was just going to Geoffrey. Could you?
Hello.
Yes. How are you?
Hello.
And how is the Ugandan space?
Yeah, I am Geoffrey Ndogezi.
Yes.
I know we were getting trouble mentioning my name.
Yes.
I am Geoffrey Ndogezi. So in Uganda, I'm mainly reading about informal transportation. And you know, when you talk about informal transportation here, you will see people talking a lot about motorcycles, matatus, and I am personally, I am a border rider. I am from this background of a border rider. I have been doing this job for over 10 years now, and I shift now to writing about informal transportation. And I've been riding an electric motorcycle for 3 years now. So I know a lot about what is happening with electric motorcycles. Repairing them has been a bit of a problem because supply chain systems are just being developed. So sometimes it is hard to get the material, to get the spare parts to keep these motorcycles moving.
Okay, so
this is an issue we've been writing about, and soon we shall be publishing an article with hardware things. Maybe you've heard about this person is publishing magazines periodically. So I think this month, this magazine will be published with our article inside.
Okay.
So when you get it, please read it. It will be in soft copy and hard copy. And our team, Lubianza, will be publishing it also on Twitter.
Okay.
So you can follow our Twitter handle. You can know what is happening with hardware things, to know what is happening with maintenance hurdles, maintenance problems that we face when we are riding these motorcycles. I am the second person in Uganda to get the electric motorcycle, and we are now over 200 people riding electric motorcycle on the streets of Kampala. So for any more information, when you want something more about what is happening with informal transportation, what is happening with e-mobility in Kampala, in Uganda, I am available to give you more information. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Geoffrey. Please also share your email on the chat so people can reach you. And you can share with us on in World Energy Day. I'm sure that our secretary will also share the email so that we know when the article is out and we can send it out to people. So thank you everybody for your time. We'll just finish with one short video before you leave. Please give us 2 minutes of your time as we run a video.